All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to talk about a really fascinating, kind of a psychological journey, right? It's all about what happens after a woman decides to leave a genuinely good, loving man. And trust me, it's a story that almost never ends the way you think it will. So, picture this. Right after it's over, the first feeling, it's not what you'd expect. It's not sadness, it's relief. A huge wave of freedom. She's posting on Instagram, telling her friends, telling herself, I'm thriving, I needed this is my time. It's this big performance of confidence. But that really brings us to the core question here, doesn't it? Because under that shiny surface of I'm so free, something else is starting to happen. It's this quiet, slow burn process that honestly can catch you totally off guard. Okay, so let's get into this first part, what we're calling the illusion of freedom. I mean, it's this whole story she's built for herself, right? But it's fragile. And you know where the first cracks start to appear? Not in the big dramatic moments. No, it's in the little, tiny, quiet ones. And you can really see that contrast here. On one side, the public face. Thriving, freedom, new adventures. But on the other side, what's happening behind closed doors? The silence in the apartment is suddenly deafening. She's noticing that her phone isn't buzzing with those little check-in texts anymore, and that's where the internal conflict really starts to bubble up. And honestly, this is usually the very first crack in that facade. It's the missing good morning and good night texts. I mean, think about it. That simple text that says, you're the first person I'm thinking of today, or the one that says, sleep well, you're safe. When those stop, wow, the void they leave is just huge. You can't ignore it. All right, now this takes us into the first major stage of this whole process, justification. This is where her brain basically goes into overdrive, trying to prove to herself that she made the right call. It's not a passive thing either. It's a full-on active effort to build a case against him and the relationship. So how does she do that? Well, she starts magnifying his flaws. Suddenly, that way he chewed his food isn't just a minor annoyance, it's a massive character defect. She's replaying every argument in her head, but only remembering her good points and his bad ones. She's packing her calendar full of distractions, anything to avoid a quiet moment, all while keeping up that thriving image online. It's a defense mechanism, plain and simple. But you can't run from it forever, right? The truth starts to sneak in. It happens in these tiny little details, like she tells a joke, and nobody laughs in that way. Or she goes to get coffee and has to remember to tell the barista 2 sugars, not 1, because there's no one there who just knows. It's the slow, creeping absence of someone who really, truly saw her.
And that feeling leads her right into the next stage, comparison. This is where she decides, okay, I'm ready to date again. She's chasing that spark, that new relationship excitement. But this is where that carefully built story she's been telling herself smacks right into a brick wall of reality.
Because now, every new guy she meets is being measured against the man she left. And they almost always come up short, especially in the ways that actually matter. The listening, it feels superficial, not deep. The consistency she used to have, it's replaced by total unpredictability. And that feeling of security and peace, gone. Now it feels transactional, like respect is something she has to earn over and over. This is where we hit what you could call the great realization. It's this massive mental shift. All those things she used to label as boring, she now sees them for what they were, stable. That thing she called predictable, she realizes it was actually dependable. And this is huge. She understands she didn't just lose a boyfriend, she lost her peace. And once that realization hits, it opens the door to the final and honestly the most painful stage of all, regret. And listen, this isn't some big dramatic movie moment. It's a slow burn. It's a quiet, heavy understanding that just kind of settles in during those 3 a.m. wake-ups or when a certain song comes on the radio. This is the point where she starts to treasure the little things she completely took for granted. Him pulling a blanket over her when she fell asleep on the couch, sending a random text just to see how her day was going, having her back in front of other people, remembering the tiny details. These are the memories that start to haunt her because now she understands their true worth. You know what makes this part especially painful? Seeing that he's moved on. And a good man, when he's hurt like that, doesn't just get bitter. He uses the pain to grow. So when she finally reaches out, Maybe just a casual reply to an Instagram story, and all she gets back is that polite but distant response. That's when she knows. It's the final nail in the coffin. That door isn't just closed, it's locked. He's gone.
At the end of the day, the regret really boils down to this one deep realization. She pushed away someone who saw all of her flaws, her quirks, everything, and still chose her every single day. And that's a tough pill to swallow.
So, from this point on, their paths really start to diverge. Let's take a look at how their two journeys split off, because it's a really stark contrast. For the man, his path to healing is often pretty straightforward. Yeah, there's a lot of pain at first, but he channels that pain into growth. He rebuilds his sense of self-worth, maybe even becomes a better version of himself. And then he moves on, stronger, wiser, and ready for something new. And here's the cruelest twist of all. As he moves on and builds his new life, he accidentally becomes a ghost that haunts her future. He's now the benchmark, the standard against which every other partner will be measured. And, a lot of the time, nobody else quite measures up. So you can see how this leads to some pretty heavy long-term psychological costs for her. Her trust in her own judgment? It's shot. She starts getting skeptical about whether genuine love is even real. She builds up these huge emotional walls. And ironically, that guarded energy tends to attract the very emotionally unavailable partners she's trying to avoid. She didn't just lose him, she lost the version of herself that knew how to feel safe and secure in a relationship. So, where does that leave us? What's the final lesson here? Well, for any man who's been in this situation, just know that on some level she gets it now. She understands what she lost. Your worth was never the question. Her ability to see it was. And for the woman, the advice is maybe a little harder to hear. Please, do not confuse peace with boredom. Don't mistake consistency for weakness. That kind of quiet, dependable love, it's incredibly rare. And you could spend the rest of your life looking for it again. And all of this really leaves us with one big question to chew on. For everybody, no matter your situation. In a world that's always screaming about the next big thrill, the next adventure, how do we learn to cherish peace? How do we learn to value that quiet stability in a relationship before it's just a memory?